Welcome to Shul.com. We are learning about from the book of the Chafetz Chaim daily studying about the Mitzvot and the Averot that a person is over with speaking Lashon Hara. So we reviewed the 17 lo ta'ases of the Lashon Hara, and now there's the 14 positives. Yesterday we reviewed that the first two, which was remember what Hashem your God did to Miriam in Devarim 24-9, that besides the avon of speaking Lashon Hara, there's also a commandment to remember what Miriam did, and by speaking Lashon Hara, that means you violated it by not remembering. And then the second one was love your neighbor as yourself, and that's Vayikra 19-18, that you have to love your friend like yourself. We're going to continue, and we're going to finish all the 14 now. So number 3 is with righteousness you shall judge your fellow. That's Vayikra 19-15. The Torah requires us to judge others favorably. If someone is known to be of average moral character and the case against him seems equally balanced between guilt and innocence, we are required to judge him favorably. If he is known to be a God-fearing Jew, then we must judge him favorably, even if the situation seems weighed against him. A person who jumps to unwarranted conclusions and speaks Lashon Hara against another or accepts another's unwarranted conclusions when he should have judged favorably violates this mitzvah. Number 4. Support him that he may dwell and live beside you. Let your brother live with you. Vayikra 25, and it's brought down in Pasuk 35 and 36. We are commanded to support others to ensure that they do not lose their livelihood. If a person speaks Lashon Hara by saying that someone is unskilled or dishonest, thereby costing him his livelihood, he violates this mitzvah. And on the bottom he mentions if one wishes to judge another favorably, he will always be able to find a way to justify questionable behavior. Brought down in Be'ed Ma'im Chaim on the positive commandment number 3. And the Torah assessed the depths of a man's powers and realized that he is indeed capable of refraining from this sin. So the Chafetz Chaim writes in the introduction that if Hashem gave this test, then he clearly gave the ability to pass it. Number 5. Rebuke your fellow. Vayikra 19-17. If a person hears someone speaking Lashon Hara or the Chilut, he must rebuke him to prevent him from sinning. If there is any chance that his attempt will be successful, one may not wait until the other person has finished speaking Lashon Hara and then rebuke him. He must interrupt him immediately. Interesting. Number 6, cling to him. Devarim 10-20. The Torah commands us to cling to Hashem by associating with Torah scholars. If a person instead associates with people who discuss Lashon Hara, he violates this mitzvah. So a person has to make his friends people that don't speak Lashon Hara. On the bottom he writes, as just as each kazait, a kazait is kazait, like a zait, like an olive, the size of an olive, of pork, is a sin unto itself, so too is each word of Lashon Hara. So a person has to see that every word of Lashon Hara is like a piece of pork. And then he brings down here, do not disdain any person in Avot 4-3. Okay, so number 7, revere my sanctuary. Vayikra 19-30. If a person speaks or listens to Lashon Hara or Rechilut in a shul or Bet Midrash, he violates the mitzvah to revere the holy place in which Hashem resides. So a person speaking in shul can have a few issues. He could have issues of speaking during the tefillah or chazara or Torah. And if he speaks Lashon Hara or Rechilut, he has a further issue on this one. Number 8, honor the presence of a sage. In Vayikra 19-32, if a person speaks Lashon Hara or Rechilut against an elderly person or a Torah scholar in his presence, he violates this mitzvah. Accepting Lashon Hara spoken against an elderly person in his presence or a Torah scholar even in his absence might also violate this mitzvah. On the bottom he writes, if we truly felt the awe of Hashem who resides in the shul, we would never allow others to speak words of Lashon Hara there in violation of Hashem's will, as brought down in Be'ed Ma'im Chaim, positive commandment number 7. Just by opening one's mouth, he can forfeit his portion in the world to come. As our sages taught, a person who humiliates his fellow in public has no portion in the world to come, as brought down in Baba Mitzvah 59, Kavod Shamayim, chapter 2. Number 9, sanctify the Kohen. Vayikra 21-8. The Torah commands us to honor Kohanim. If a person speaks Lashon Hara or Rechilut against a Kohen in his presence, he violates this mitzvah This might also apply in the Kohen's absence, even to the listener. Number 10. Honor your father and mother. Shemot 20-12. A. If a person speaks against his father or mother, he violates this mitzvah, whether or not his parents are present. He also evokes the curse. Cursed is he who disdains his father or mother. Accepting Lashon Hara about one's parents might also violate this mitzvah. B. If a person speaks Lashon Hara or Rechilut against his oldest brother or against his step-parent, he also violates this mitzvah. The Midrash also explains that by honoring our parents, we partially repay the debt we owe them for their kindness. One must love them devotedly, just as they love him, and not regard them as an unwanted burden. Sefer Charedim, chapter 9, page 37 and 38. 11. Fear Hashem, your God. Devarim 10-20. When challenged with a difficult mitzvah, we are commanded to arouse our fear of Hashem and remember that he punishes those who disobey him. If a person freely speaks Lashon Hara or Rechilut, he transgresses this mitzvah. 12. Torah study. A. Torah study is equivalent to all other mitzvot combined, and there is no limit to its reward. Correspondingly, shirking one's duties in Torah study is equivalent to all other sins combined. A person cannot exempt himself from Torah study with the excuse that he will learn later, since the obligation is incumbent at every moment. If a person uses his precious time to speak Lashon Hara or Rechilut instead of learning Torah, he violates the mitzvah of Torah study. B. If we consider the sin of Bitul Torah transgressed with each moment of Lashon Hara, in addition to the sin of Lashon Hara itself, we would reach a staggering sum of sins. This is in addition to the other Torah prohibitions and positive commandments detailed above. Therefore, a person must be very careful to refrain from Lashon Hara. And he brings down at the bottom, the mitzvah of Torah study is incumbent every moment. Past learning does not exempt a person from learning now. A person who wastes several hours violates the mitzvah of Torah study with every single moment, as the Chafetz Chaim brings down the positive commandment 12. Number 13. Distance yourself from falsehood. Shemot 23-7. If even the slightest falsehood is incorporated into one's Lashon Hara, which means Lashon Hara is something true that is derogatory about somebody. If you now include some falsehood into what is true that is derogatory about somebody, he transgresses this new mitzvah. In addition, this is considered Motzi Shem Ra. He also now has an issue because he spoke Lashon Hara and he included some falsehood, so he got the Motzi Shem Ra in there, the spreading of a false rumor, which carries a punishment far more severe than truthful Lashon Hara or Rechilut. Number 14. Walk in his ways. Devarim 28-9. If a person regularly speaks Lashon Hara or Rechilut, he transgresses the mitzvah to emulate Hashem's ways, which are entirely benevolent. Hashem detests slander even if it is spoken against truly terrible people, which that's a very interesting point. He doesn't like those that speak Lashon Hara, even on people that seemingly are Reshaim. Summary, we have listed here 14 positive commandments that are likely to be violated by Lashon Hara and Rechilut. These are in addition to the 17 prohibitions listed above. If Chas v'Shalom, a person regularly speaks Lashon Hara, he will certainly violate them all over time. So you had 14 and 17, so you have 31 so far. So let's continue. He says, in the same area that a Sadiq sins, he can appease Hashem and find forgiveness. Thus, if he spoke Lashon Hara, his teshuvah involves using his words to help others by admonishing them and encouraging them in Torah and mitzvah observance, and by making peace between them. So he says, Shemirat Lashon, Zechirah, chapter 13, that he says, if a person did speak Lashon Hara, what can he do thus far? With what we have learned so far, is that he can make shalom between people, avoid mahloket, and things that would make possibly not peace with people, mitzvah observance, encouraging them and others and admonishing them to learn Torah, and obviously with tefillah, with his mouth, and siyag la'chokhmah shtika, staying silent when you should be silent. And so let's continue. The curses involved in Lashon Hara. What are the curses to people that speak Lashon Hara? Number 1, cursed is he who strikes his fellow in secret. Devarim 27-24. This curse applies to those who speak against others behind their backs, striking them in secret, as it were. They're striking them, but behind their backs, they're stabbing them in the back, but with words without anyone knowing. Number 2, cursed is he who misleads a blind man. Devarim 27-18. This curse applies to those who misled ignorant people by deliberately offering them bad advice. It also applies to those who encourage others to sin. A person who speaks Lashon Hara is cursed for causing his audience to transgress the prohibition of listening to Lashon Hara. Interesting. Number 3, cursed is he who does not uphold the words of the Torah. Devarim 27-26. This curse applies to those who entirely disregard any mitzvah of the Torah. If a person makes no effort to restrain himself from speaking Lashon Hara, he falls into this category. Number 4, cursed is he who scorns his father and or mother. In Devarim 27-16, if a person speaks Lashon Hara against his father or mother, he evokes this curse. So there's a specific extra curse for those who are speaking Lashon Hara about their parents. If the congregants of just one shul were preserve peace in their community as they should, their merit could bring Mashiach. Shemirat Lashon 2, the end of chapter 7. That's also brought down I saw that I believe in one of the Zohars or in Aramit, one of the Sfarim, that if one Bet Knesset would make teshuvah and really do everything right, it would be enough of a zichut to bring the Mashiach, which unfortunately also means that there really has never been a group together of a minyan or more that have fully all l'shem shamayim and have shalom between them and have no strife or sinat chinam amongst their group. So based on what we see here, there's 17 and 14, 17 lo ta'aseh, 14 aseh, that's 31 plus 5 curses involved just with one word of Lashon Hara. So our next shi'ur, we're going to begin what are the actual laws of Lashon Hara and what could you speak about, what you can't speak about, and we're going to go into all the details so a person could be a lot more confident. If something that he needs to say about someone or some situation, he'll know what are the guidelines of it. We're also going to discuss the Richilut, Motzi Shem Ra, and all those details. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen v'Amen.